the power that no algorithm can measure. In a world obsessed with visibility, followers, likes, and algorithms that decide who matters, there's a quiet kind of woman that the world doesn't quite understand. She's not loud, she's not chasing attention, and yet, when she enters a room, everything changes. The air shifts, the energy recalibrates. It's not charisma, it's consciousness. Carl Gustav Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But in today's world, most women are becoming what the world rewards, not who their soul truly is. They spend years trying to be likable, productive, pretty enough for the feed, all while forgetting the deeper intelligence that pulses beneath the surface, an ancient, invisible power that no algorithm can quantify. You've seen her, maybe you are her. She's the woman who no longer posts for validation, who reads more than she scrolls, who would rather disappear for a month to heal than perform happiness online. She's misunderstood, labeled cold, mysterious, even difficult. But what she truly is awake, because real feminine power doesn't sparkle under a ring light. It doesn't need filters or quotes about self-love. It breathes in silence. It grows in solitude. It moves unseen, but it changes everything it touches. Jung called this energy the archetypal feminine, the eternal current of wisdom, intuition, and creation that lives in every woman. And when this power awakens, the world reacts. Some are drawn to it like moths to an ancient flame. Others fear it, because it mirrors everything they've buried within themselves. Today, we'll uncover the 6 hidden signs of women with high spiritual power, not as a checklist, but as a mirror. Because if you recognize yourself in even one of these signs, it means you are not lost. You're being initiated. You see, Jung didn't just study dreams. He studied awakening, and what happens when a woman begins to live not from her ego, but from her soul. And in the age of social media and noise, that awakening looks radical. So let's begin with the first sign, the silent aura that shifts every room. The silent aura, the hidden power modern women forget they have. There's a kind of power that doesn't announce itself, it simply arrives. It doesn't need to speak first, post first, or shine brightest. It moves quietly, but when it does, the entire atmosphere bends around it. Imagine this: you're in a room full of noise, people laughing too loudly, trying too hard, talking over one another about nothing at all. It's the same energy we see online every day, the endless scroll of people performing their version of confidence, the digital masquerade of authenticity. Then suddenly, someone walks in. She doesn't try to be seen, yet everyone feels her. Her stillness cuts through the static. The noise falters for just a moment. The energy in the room reorganizes itself, almost involuntarily, around her presence. That's not social skill. That's spiritual gravity. Carl Jung once called it the mana personality, an aura that emerges when someone has touched something divine within themselves. It's not about dominance, it's about depth. And in women, this depth expresses as an almost sacred calm. You can see it even in the smallest places. On a Zoom call where everyone's racing to speak, she waits. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't compete for space. And yet when she finally speaks, her voice lands differently. People listen, not because she demands attention, but because something in her tone carries truth, unhurried, grounded, magnetic. You'll notice it at a dinner table too. While others rush to fill silence, she lets it breathe. While others seek approval, she observes. And that calm observation makes people uneasy, because in her silence, masks begin to fall. It's not that she judges, it's that her presence reflects people back to themselves. That's why some are drawn to her, and others can't stand to be near her for too long, because her very being exposes what's fake, what's inflated, what's insecure. In the TikTok era, we've been taught that visibility equals value, that if you're not broadcasting every thought, you'll be forgotten. But this woman, the spiritually powerful woman, moves in the opposite direction. She doesn't chase attention, she redirects it. Every time she withdraws from the noise, she reclaims her energy from the collective chaos. Her silence isn't emptiness, it's containment. And that containment is what gives her power. You see, Jung believed that true psychic energy cannot be faked. You can imitate confidence, but you can't imitate coherence, that inner alignment that radiates peace even when life is uncertain. And coherence only comes from one thing: facing yourself. Most people can't do that. That's why the internet is loud, because silence is unbearable when you haven't met your own shadow. But she has. That's why she can sit through the quiet. She's the woman who deletes posts, not because they didn't perform well, but because they didn't feel true. She doesn't need to prove her existence with constant updates. Her energy speaks louder than any algorithm ever could. And the paradox? Her quiet becomes her broadcast. Her absence becomes presence. In a world where everyone is screaming to be heard, she whispers, and the world leans closer. This is the first hidden sign of spiritual power, the silent aura that reorders the field around her. It's not charisma. It's not mystery as performance. It's the afterglow of deep work, the kind of work that doesn't make it to Instagram stories, the kind done in long nights of reflection, heartbreak, and surrender. Because only a woman who has sat with her pain without turning it into content can hold that kind of stillness. Only a woman who has faced the chaos inside herself can bring order to the chaos around her. And so her energy becomes a mirror, not a spotlight, but a reflection. When people encounter her, they meet themselves, and that's why she feels ancient, because what she carries isn't personality, it's archetype. This, Jung would say, is the return of the feminine mana, the divine current that doesn't fight for space, it creates it. In her silence lives the wisdom of countless women who learned to survive without noise. In her calm burns the memory of every ancestor who found strength in invisibility. She is not trying to be powerful, she simply is. And that is precisely what makes her power so rare and so feared in a world built on performance. The wound that became wisdom in the age of Instagram. Every woman with real spiritual power carries a wound that changed the direction of her life. Not a heartbreak you can post about, not a breakup quote that collects sympathy online, but a rupture so deep that no filter could disguise it. It's the kind of pain that doesn't make for a viral story, because it's too quiet, too private, too sacred. The kind that doesn't just break you, it rewrites you. Jung called this archetype the wounded healer, the soul that was forced into the depths, not by choice, but by necessity. And in the age of Instagram, that descent has become harder than ever because the world no longer knows what to do with unedited pain. We are living in an era where everyone's suffering must be aesthetic. Grief must have good lighting. Healing must come with a quote. Tears must sparkle under the right filter. But real transformation, the kind Jung devoted his life to understanding, is not photogenic. It happens when the feed is silent, when no one is watching, when you've run out of words to post, and all that's left is the sound of your own breaking heart echoing in a dark room. Maybe for you, it began with betrayal, someone you trusted showing you the sharp edge of their truth. Maybe it was a marriage that collapsed quietly under the weight of years of emotional neglect. Maybe it was a moment of realizing that you'd built your entire life around being what everyone else needed, and you no longer remembered what you wanted. That's when the soul intervenes. That's when the divine feminine within you says, "Enough." And that moment, though it feels like death, is the beginning of your rebirth. You see, pain is not the enemy, avoiding it is, because the wound is the portal, not the punishment. But social media has taught us to hide the wound and pretend we've already transcended it. We see endless videos that say, "Protect your peace" or "Choose yourself." But true self-choice is not glamorous. It's the night you cried so hard you scared yourself. It's unfollowing people, not out of pride, but out of survival. It's admitting that the version of you who could tolerate emotional crumbs no longer exists. That's when the alchemy begins. When you stop trying to look healed and actually start healing. Jung wrote that the psyche is self-healing, just like the body, but only if we allow the wound to stay open long enough for the truth to enter. And in that opening, women discover something extraordinary. Their pain is not personal, it's ancestral, it's archetypal. It's the echo of centuries of silenced women, passed down through the collective unconscious, waiting for someone brave enough to feel it fully. And when you do, something miraculous happens. Your suffering becomes wisdom. Your vulnerability becomes your medicine, because you begin to see you were never broken. You were being initiated. Watch how this plays out in modern life. The woman who used to overshare her heartbreak online now goes silent, not out of shame, but reverence. She no longer seeks validation for her pain. She seeks integration. She journals instead of posting. She walks instead of explaining. She lets the wound teach her what no mentor could, and slowly, her energy changes. The chaos softens. The desperation dissolves. People start coming to her for advice, not realizing they're drawn to her because she's carried her pain honestly. That's how it works. Unprocessed pain repels, but integrated pain magnetizes. In a world where everyone performs perfection, her quiet authenticity feels like oxygen. She doesn't need to preach healing. She embodies it, and others sense it in the way she speaks, the way she listens, the way she can hold someone's trembling story without trying to fix it, because she knows not everything broken must be repaired. Some things are meant to be transformed. The wound taught her compassion, not the soft kind that pities, but the fierce kind that understands. She can sit in the presence of another person's chaos without turning away because she sat in her own. This is the paradox of the feminine psyche Jung saw so clearly. The woman who has known the greatest sorrow often becomes the safest place for others to rest. Her heartbreak didn't destroy her. It initiated her into wisdom. So, if you carry pain that refuses to leave, don't rush to delete it from your story. Stay with it. Let it speak. Because one day, that pain will stop being a scar and start being a map that guides others out of the darkness you once walked through alone. That's the second hidden sign of a woman with high spiritual power. She turned her wound into wisdom in a world that fears feeling. The intuition that reads between screens. There's a kind of sight that doesn't rely on eyes. It doesn't need proof, data, or explanations. It's the knowing that rises in the body before the mind catches up. The quiet alarm that whispers, "Something's off here." Carl Jung called it the language of the unconscious. Messages sent through symbols, emotions, and sensations, long before logic can interpret them. And in the modern world, this ancient faculty hasn't disappeared. It's simply moved online. In a time where we meet more souls through screens than in person, intuition has become the new form of literacy, because now the truth rarely hides in words. It hides in tone, in timing, in what's not said. She knows this. The spiritually awakened woman feels energy even through a text message. She reads the pauses between replies, the forced exclamation marks, the emojis used to disguise indifference. She senses when someone's "I'm fine" means "please don't ask again." When someone's "so happy for you" carries the weight of envy. She doesn't analyze it, she simply knows. Her nervous system is tuned like a radio to frequencies others can't hear. Jung would say, her unconscious is porous, receptive to the emotional field that surrounds her. She's the modern empath, not in the sentimental sense, but in the archetypal one, the bridge between seen and unseen. But this sensitivity, in our era of digital masks, is both a gift and a burden, because the internet has turned into a theater of personas. Everyone wears filters, not just on their faces, but on their emotions. We curate our vulnerability, crop our truth, and call it authenticity. Yet she can feel the dissonance, the gap between image and essence. She scrolls through a feed full of smiling faces and feels the loneliness beneath them. She sees a motivational quote and senses the exhaustion behind the performance. She watches a couple's perfect vacation video and tastes the silence between them. It's not cynicism, it's sight, the sight of the soul, and that sight changes everything. Because when you can see beneath the surface, you stop worshiping illusions. You stop envying people whose outer lives are polished but hollow. You stop chasing the validation that costs you your peace. Her intuition has made her allergic to pretense. She can no longer stay in conversations that lack truth or relationships that feel energetically lopsided. Even in group chats, her body knows when to withdraw. When the laughter feels forced, when the energy turns sharp, it's not anxiety, it's awareness. It's her psyche protecting its own frequency. This sensitivity used to scare her. She thought she was too emotional, too intense, too much. But Jung taught that the intuitive woman is not fragile. She's finely calibrated. She's not overwhelmed because she's weak. She's overwhelmed because she perceives everything. So she learns boundaries, not as walls, but as filters. She learns to close her psychic window when the world becomes too loud, to log off not from boredom, but from sacred preservation, because constant exposure to collective noise dilutes her intuition, and she knows her inner signal is too valuable to lose. There's a quiet revolution happening among women like her. They're unfollowing accounts that drain them, muting chaos disguised as content, choosing silence over scrolls, and slowly, their intuition grows sharper again, because clarity doesn't come from consuming more information, but from listening to less noise. That's when it happens. Synchronicities start multiplying. The right message arrives at the right time. A person she thought about suddenly texts her. A song she needed to hear plays out of nowhere. These aren't coincidences. They're confirmations. As Jung said, synchronicity is the language the soul uses to get your attention. Her intuition isn't magic, it's memory, a remembering of how to navigate life without overthinking it, a trust that what she feels is data, that emotion itself is intelligence. In a world that praises logic but is starving for meaning, her intuition becomes her rebellion, because while everyone else scrolls for answers, she sits in stillness and receives them. Her wisdom doesn't come from algorithms, it comes from alignment. That is the third hidden sign of a woman with high spiritual power. She reads the energy between the screens. She senses truth in a digital age built on illusion. She listens with her entire being, and because of that, she cannot be deceived for long. She's not watching the world, she's feeling it, and through that feeling, she's reclaiming the ancient feminine art of knowing. The sacred relationship with solitude in the digital noise. There is a kind of silence that most people today will do anything to avoid, not because it is empty, but because it reveals too much. We live in an age where loneliness is treated like a disease. Every app promises connection. Every platform sells belonging. Our days are filled with voices, notifications, and constant reminders that we are not alone. And yet, never in human history have we felt so disconnected from ourselves. The modern woman scrolls through endless conversations, but finds none that truly touch her. She fills her calendar to outrun the quiet. She calls the noise productivity, but deep down, she knows it's just another way to hide from the ache of her own presence. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And solitude, in its purest form, is the doorway to that awakening. But it is a doorway very few dare to walk through, because to be alone, truly alone, is to meet every part of yourself that the world has taught you to ignore. The woman of high spiritual power, however, does not fear this meeting. She seeks it. For her, solitude is not punishment. It is pilgrimage, a return to her original temple, her own soul. Watch her in today's world. She's the one who no longer feels the need to announce her every move. Her mornings begin not with a scroll, but with stillness, tea in her hands, sunlight in her room, silence as her first conversation. She logs off not out of bitterness, but out of devotion, because she knows what most have forgotten. When the world gets too loud, the soul whispers more softly. Jung saw solitude as the vessel of individuation, the sacred container in which a person becomes whole. Without it, the psyche cannot integrate its fragments. And yet the modern world treats stillness like a sin. We have been conditioned to equate silence with insignificance, to mistake visibility for value. That's why her retreat unsettles others. They ask, "Why are you so distant?" They interpret her quiet as sadness, her solitude as rejection. But what they cannot understand is that she's not withdrawing from life, she's descending into it. In her solitude, she digests the noise of the world. She lets the emotions she's absorbed from others settle like sediment in clear water. She listens to her dreams, to the archetypes speaking through them. She writes not for attention, but for alchemy, turning confusion into clarity, pain into poetry. Sometimes she disappears for days. She stops replying, stops performing, stops explaining, and the world panics, because absence is now interpreted as death. But she is not dead, she's gestating. In the silence, her next evolution is forming. The irony of the digital age is that everyone is talking, but no one is truly communicating. Everyone is connected, but few are truly in communion. She has learned to trade connection for communion, and that requires solitude. Her loneliness, once a wound, becomes a well. The same silence that once felt suffocating now feels sacred, because she has crossed the line that separates isolation from initiation. There are two kinds of solitude, Jung would say, one that empties and one that fills. The first comes from rejection, the ego's fear of abandonment. The second comes from choice, the soul's need for restoration. She has lived both, and she knows the difference in her bones. When she turns off the phone, When the glow of the screen fades, when the only sound left is her breathing, something ancient stirs inside her. It's not boredom. It's return. Return to her essence. Return to the feminine rhythm that society taught her to silence. Because a woman who can be alone is a woman the system cannot control. She no longer seeks approval to exist. She no longer performs to be seen. She becomes self-sourced. Her solitude is her sovereignty. And slowly, without announcement, her life begins to align. People who cannot meet her depth drift away. Those who resonate find her without searching. Synchronicities follow her steps. Her peace becomes contagious. This is the fourth hidden sign of a woman with high spiritual power. She has turned solitude into sanctuary. While others drown in noise, she drinks from the well of silence. While the world runs from itself, she meets herself again and again, until the loneliness dissolves into wholeness. Because in the end, the truest form of connection is the one you cultivate with your own soul. The courage to dance with her own darkness. There comes a point in every woman's awakening when the light she's been chasing turns inward and reveals the shadows she's been avoiding. It's the moment when healing stops feeling beautiful and begins to feel like death. Carl Jung warned that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He knew that the path to wholeness is not lined with affirmations and scented candles. It begins in the underworld, in the dim corridors of the psyche, where all the unspoken parts of you wait to be seen. The spiritually powerful woman has been there. She has faced the mirror that polite society avoids. Not the mirror that flatters, but the one that reveals. Her descent didn't happen in a ceremony or a retreat. It happened on a Tuesday night when her own reflection startled her, when she realized that beneath her kindness lived anger, beneath her grace lived envy, beneath her compassion lived exhaustion. It was not a moral failure. It was truth. In that moment, something in her broke, but what shattered was not her essence. It was the mask she'd worn to survive. This is what Jung called the ego death. The unraveling of the persona, the moment when the false self finally collapses under the weight of its own performance. It feels like losing everything, but what's really dying is the illusion of control. For years, she believed she had to be the good one, the understanding one, the one who forgives, uplifts, and never complains. But inside, a storm had been gathering. Rage at the roles that silenced her, grief for the parts she'd disowned, fear that she might be too dark to be loved. Most people run from this storm. They distract, overwork, or medicate the ache. But she stayed. She sat in the center of it and let the rain wash her clean. Because Jungian shadow work isn't about conquering darkness. It's about communion with it. To look at the most terrifying parts of yourself and say, I see you. I understand why you exist. She began to realize that her anger was not evil. It was boundary. Her jealousy was not shameful. It was unmet desire. Her sadness was not weakness. It was memory. Every emotion she'd rejected carried a message from the soul, and as she listened, her shadow softened. What once haunted her began to serve her. The rage became fire. The grief became empathy. The fear became discernment. This is the alchemy of the feminine psyche, the transformation of poison into medicine. But it's not an easy dance. There are nights when she still feels the old patterns pulling her back, the urge to please, to shrink, to disappear. And yet, every time she chooses awareness over avoidance, the light inside her grows steadier. In the modern world, this process is misunderstood. People talk about positivity, about manifesting light, as if evolution could happen without descent. But Jung knew that the soul grows roots in darkness, that the lotus blooms only from mud. So when her life fell apart, when people left, when she cried until her body ached, she didn't label it failure. She recognized it as initiation, the sacred dismantling before rebirth. Even now, she carries that darkness like a secret compass. It keeps her honest. It keeps her human. It reminds her that spiritual power without humility is corruption. That light without shadow is illusion. And when she meets others lost in their own storms, she doesn't rush to fix them. She sits beside them in silence, because she knows that darkness, too, is holy. She has learned the art of sacred witnessing, of holding another's pain without turning away. That is why her presence feels safe, why people confess their truths to her without knowing why. Her light is not sterile. It has been tempered by fire. She has walked through the ashes of her ego and found her soul intact. This is the fifth hidden sign of a woman with high spiritual power. She has the courage to dance with her own darkness. She has faced the parts of herself that others project onto enemies, and in doing so, she has become whole, because the woman who makes peace with her shadow can never again be manipulated by the dark. She no longer fears the night within her. She carries its stars in her eyes, and as Jung might whisper from beyond the veil, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. She no longer calls it fate. She calls it freedom. The bridge between worlds, reclaiming the ancestral feminine. When a woman has faced her shadow and returned from her own underworld, something extraordinary happens. Her consciousness no longer belongs only to her. She becomes porous, a vessel through which ancient memory moves. Her dreams change. Her intuition sharpens into prophecy. Her words begin to sound like they've been spoken before, because they have. Carl Jung called this mysterious realm the collective unconscious, the invisible ocean beneath the surface of human life, where every story, every archetype, every ancestral voice still breathes. And women, he noticed, often carry a more direct current to that ocean. It runs through their bloodlines, their intuition, their silence. When she sits in solitude now, she's not alone. She feels presences, not ghosts, but echoes of all who came before her. The grandmother who never spoke her truth, the mother who carried burdens too heavy to name, the healer burned for knowing too much. They move through her like wind through tall grass. Their unfinished songs hum inside her ribs. In our modern language, we call this intuition, gut feeling, energy. But Jung knew it was far deeper. It was the psyche remembering itself across centuries, the collective feminine, awakening again through individual women. She starts noticing patterns that no one else sees. A sentence from a book aligns perfectly with a dream she had. A symbol repeats in different places. A white bird, a serpent, a doorway. She stops dismissing these as coincidences and begins to understand. Life is speaking to her in its native language symbols. Jung called this synchronicity the meaningful coincidence that bridges the inner world and the outer one. For her, this becomes a daily conversation. The world is no longer random, it's responsive. Her intuition becomes a compass, her dreams a map, and as she lives by this rhythm, something ancient awakens within her, a memory of what women once were before the world forgot. In ancient temples, the feminine was not ornamental. She was oracular. The priestess didn't predict the future, she translated it. She listened to the murmur of the invisible and gave it form through art, story, and healing. The modern spiritually awakened woman carries that same role, though she may not wear robes or live in temples. Her temple is her life. Her ritual is presence. When she writes, her words heal. When she paints, the collective breathes through her colors. When she loves, she restores what generations before her lost. Every act becomes sacred service. But this bridge between worlds is not without responsibility, because to channel wisdom from the unseen, one must stay humble. Jung warned that when we mistake our personal ego for divine authority, the bridge collapses. That's why she protects her stillness, because noise distorts the signal. She knows that true wisdom whispers. It never shouts. In a world obsessed with influence, she practices invisibility. She doesn't need to prove her connection to the divine. She lives it quietly, in how she forgives, how she listens, how she walks through pain without bitterness. Others may call her mystical, but she knows it's simply maturity, the maturity of the soul that has remembered its origin. There's a new kind of power rising among women like her, a power rooted not in dominance, but in depth, not in control, but in communion. It is the return of the anima mundi, the world soul that Jung believed could heal civilization itself, and it begins wherever one woman chooses to stop performing and start remembering that she is not separate from the whole, that her intuition is not random, but the voice of generations moving through her, that her healing is not personal, but ancestral. Every tear she sheds washes clean the grief of thousands of women who were never allowed to cry. Every time she speaks her truth, the collective breathes a little freer. She has become what Jung once described as a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, the ancient and the modern, the seen and the unseen. She walks between worlds, half woman, half myth, her feet on the ground, her soul in eternity. This is the sixth and final hidden sign of women with high spiritual power. She carries the wisdom of the ages without needing to explain it. She listens to the collective heartbeat and translates it into love, art, presence. She is not a mystic lost in visions. She is a woman who has found her place in the cosmic rhythm. And if you felt her words move through you as you listened, if something inside you stirs, that's no accident. It's the collective feminine calling you home, because in every era, there comes a generation of women who remember. And when they do, the world shifts. The noise quiets. The sacred returns. The return to wholeness, becoming the woman Jung saw in his dreams. Close your eyes for a moment. Let the noise fall away. Feel the quiet between your breaths, the still rhythm that was here before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung once wrote that, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know." But what he didn't say, what perhaps he only whispered to his own soul, is that this unknown self is not a stranger. It is the woman you were always meant to become. She has walked with you through every shadow of this journey. She was there when you silenced your truth to be loved. She was there when you cried in secret, afraid your softness made you weak. And she was there, waiting each time you rose again, quieter, wiser, more aligned with something ancient inside you. This is the woman Jung saw in his dreams, not a goddess above humanity, but a woman deeply rooted in it, her heart both fierce and tender, her presence both fire and water. She is the self made whole, the union of opposites, the marriage of her light and her shadow, her logic and her intuition, her humanness and her divinity. You have met her in glimpses, in the calm that arrives after chaos, in the strength that surfaces when no one else is watching, in the quiet certainty that you are no longer who you were, and yet more yourself than ever. Wholeness, Jung said, is not perfection, it's integration. It's when every part of you, the wounded, the wild, the wise, is finally allowed to sit at the same table, and none of them need to hide anymore. Take a breath. Feel the body that has carried you through transformation, the heart that kept beating even when broken, the intuition that guided you when logic failed, the silence that became your sanctuary. All of it you. The return to wholeness isn't a destination. It's a remembering that you were never incomplete, only conditioned to forget your own depth. You are not the woman scrolling for meaning. You are the meaning scrolling through the world. You are not waiting for light. You are the light that learned to move through darkness without losing its shape. Jung believed that the most powerful force in the universe is an individual soul that has become conscious of itself. You are that soul, and the moment you embrace your solitude, your wounds, your intuition, and your shadow as sacred, you step into that power quietly, naturally, irreversibly. So as this journey closes, take a moment to bless the path that brought you here, the endings that freed you, the heartbreaks that opened you, the silences that revealed you. And know this, the woman you've been becoming all along, she's not coming from the future, she's rising from within you now. You have crossed the threshold between the unconscious and the conscious. You have walked through fire and found your form. You have remembered the voice beneath the world's noise. And from here, the work is simple. Live as her, not by effort, but by embodiment, not by seeking, but by being. Because the woman who knows herself is the rarest thing in the modern world and the most luminous. Her peace is her revolution. Her presence is her prayer. And her life lived fully, fiercely, freely is her offering to the collective soul of humanity. So breathe. You've come home. You are whole. You are what Jung saw in his dreams, the awakened feminine, the bridge between shadow and light, the living symbol of consciousness itself. And somewhere in that vast collective unconscious, 1,000 silent women feel it too. Your becoming has reminded them of their own. The journey continues, but for now, rest in the truth that you have returned to yourself, and that, dear soul, is everything. The breath of awareness. Before you leave this space, don't rush back into the noise. Stay here just for a few breaths. Place a hand over your heart. Feel it steady, ancient, alive. That rhythm has carried you through every version of yourself, every silence, every ending, every rebirth. In Jung's language, this moment, this breath, is the meeting point between the conscious and the unconscious. It is where transformation becomes real, not in words, not in ideas, but in presence. So as you inhale, invite yourself fully into this now. And as you exhale, let go of the roles, the rush, the need to be anywhere else, because your presence right now is the most sacred act of remembrance. If this journey has stirred something deep within you, if the voice of your own soul feels a little louder than before, honor it. Let this not be the end of a video, but the continuation of your inner dialogue, the quiet friendship with your own psyche. And when you're ready, subscribe not as a click of habit, but as a gesture of mindfulness, a vow to keep walking this path of inner balance, to return here whenever the world feels too loud, to remember that you are never truly alone in your solitude. Each new breath is another threshold, each pause, another homecoming, and every time you choose stillness over noise, the collective feminine, the soul of humanity itself, takes one step closer to wholeness. So, inhale, feel the peace you've earned. Exhale, release the weight you no longer need, and as you slowly open your eyes, carry this awareness with you into the world. Let your silence speak. Let your presence heal. Let your being just as it is become your quiet prayer for the collective. Until we meet again in the next journey, breathe gently, live truthfully, and remember, the light you're searching for has always been you.